the speed and momentum of making Anambra State an oil producing state was actually stopped or delayed by the loss of government, or the loss of the PDP's loss at the center. If you could recall, my brother Okelo has actually given a little bit of the background, although it was convenient to forget that the issue for Anambra State, after the president had pronounced that in Anambra, when it was raised in the National Assembly. When it was raised in the National Assembly, there are some people who are now believed to be APC members kicked against it. They opposed it. After that National Assembly incident, we never heard of it. I don't know what happened, but Okelo had just told us that it was a correspondence between two government agencies, the federal government and the Federal Inland Revenue, or whatever agency at the center. My concern as Anambra is, what do we expect from that? Everything in Nigeria is being reduced to politics. After playing the politics now, what will be the next thing for the Anambra? Okelo had just pointed out to us that oil production is in the exclusive list. But at the same time, he was telling us that we are not campaigned on that. I don't want to dwell into that, because if it's an exclusive list, it's an exclusive list. So it's within the corridors of the federal government to declare Anambra an oil producing state, which has been done by no other person than the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Every other thing, I believe, is purely administrative. And then the people running the administration as at today are probably not, disposed at making that to happen. But the Anambra are hoping, irrespective of the politics involved, that sooner than later, that the state will be officially recognized as an oil producing state, with us getting our 13% derivation like every other oil producing state. And with the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act, for the host communities to be getting their 3%. So the focus should be, how would that be achieved as soon as possible? Irrespective of the politics that has happened, I believe it's still within the exclusive list. And if it's one of the items on the exclusive list, it's within the exclusive powers of the federal government to do that. The state government has little or no role to play. Whatever they're going to do is complementary. Thank you. Hello?
Hello, I have a question to ask at this point. It appears that our host, I think, network problem. So I think I'm a little bit confused here, and I want to be clear. Is oil now being produced and exported from any oil well in Anambra State? Architect Madukaife, please.
No, as far as I know.
So why, in what sense is Anambra an oil producing state then, if there is no oil being produced and exported? Let me not say refined, because I know that that's a different, but if no oil is being produced and exported from Anambra State, how then is Anambra an oil producing state?
That is the question that must be answered by the one who is absent from this meeting. Because that is where all these issues were generated. That's by exploiting the information enlightenment gap in society by giving the impression that Anambra State government has achieved oil production and made the place Anambra State an oil producing state under this tenure. It is like deceiving the people. That's where this controversy started. There is a promissory note on ground by people who are supposed to do that, which represents an advancement and for which we have commended the federal government. But we find it difficult to find what Anambra State is celebrating when the counterpart activities have not been availed. There is no infrastructure to the place. There are no residencies that would make people comfortable to be there to do that work. All those things that will make the activities to start have not been done. And we are celebrating the mere declaration, which only moved one step from the oral declaration of the president without the National Assembly input, which my friend Ohaegbu has admitted. Chief Ohaegbu, please, when you go back, I understand that President Jonathan wants to go for another term. Tell him that he needs to carry his National Assembly along before making that pronouncement, and that it is a normal thing if there's an opposition in the National Assembly, and he should work at it. He can represent his bill 3-4 times with all the necessary lobby. I don't think there's any other politics we need to play with that. Thank you.
I think I was cut off from the point you said it's a normal thing if there is opposition, so I didn't hear the rest.
I'll repeat. I said in future, you may wish to ask the president if he comes back for another tenure, because I understand he's warming up to be president again, so that he should carry his National Assembly along in making certain pronouncements. And if he did not do that, the time from October 2012, when he made that declaration, up till May 2015 was 3 years. Time enough to present and represent whatever he was presenting to the National Assembly and make it work like a true leader, through lobby, through explanation, and through vision, sharing his vision. So if he failed in that, he cannot pass the buck.
Well,
okay, I apologize.
Allow Ohaegbu to respond. No need to apologize, please. You are back now. Allow Ohaegbu to respond, please.
Well, to respond to Okelo, my very good friend and brother, he is telling me, and I've had a number of times I've heard about the possibility of Jonathan returning. I've heard that from my APC brothers. I understand they are trying to repackage him so that the South will have only 4 years. And now that the spokesman of the APC in Anambra has equally mentioned that it's possible that it's part of their game plan. That said, let me repeat what I said. Probably you didn't understand me. As you mentioned earlier, oil production exploration is in the exclusive list. It's only the federal government that can do that. Getting or involving the state and all that, or even the state taking credit of anything about that, is politics, and I wouldn't want us to go down that route. It's the responsibility of the federal government to do that exploration, production, and all that. And the last time I checked, I was made to understand that the Orient Oil has mobilized all that is required to explore oil in Anambra State. They've raised the funds, they have put the required infrastructure on ground, and they were ready, only waiting for the necessary approvals from the federal government that is being run by the APC as of today. So my point is that we have not got to that point. I don't know the reason, but I will want you to actually help in persuading the people at the center If Jonathan failed to do that for the Southeast, Jonathan failed to pump in billions for the oil, search for oil in the north. But this federal government has moved in and billions of dollars have been pumped in, looking for oil in the north. So if that could be done, what stops the same government from partnering with Orient Oil to ensure that Anambra State oil production starts in earnest? So we should make sure and ensure that the bulk should stop where it should stop. It's the responsibility of the federal government. Jonathan has left government since 2015. We are now in 2021. Why has that not been done? And are you now telling me or telling us or telling the Anambra that the person who wrote the letter to the state government did not act responsibly, or he did that for the purpose of politics? As in the Anambra, all we want is because as of today, our revenue is not the best in terms of allocation for the federal government. We have a lot of industries. We have a lot of things going on in Anambra, and more funds to the state government will mean a lot for the state. Will mean a lot for the country. And this particular issue is within the exclusive.
Okay, I think we lost him there. Yes, we lost him there. So let me ask you this, Adinuba. Considering that this is an election year, don't you think that this move, just like the building of the airport, is a strategy to present the current ruling party, APGA, in a favorable view in the eyes of India and Anambra?
I didn't get that.
I said, considering that this is an election year, do you believe that this move as to make Anambra an oil-producing state is a strategy employed by the current ruling party, APGA, in Anambra State, to present APGA as a favorable party in the eyes of India and Anambra?
I really wish that APGA was represented in this discussion, because they set up this unnecessary controversy. I would have liked them to be here when I say that they are deodorizing failure. APGA had 4 pillars that they wanted to pursue as their agenda. Number 1, the growth of oil industry in Anambra State, to make it an oil-producing state. 1. Number 2, industrialization of Anambra State. Number 3, agriculture. And number 4, commerce, which is about raising the internally generated revenue in the state. And we'd analyze this in various radio stations in around February to March this year. And the submission was total failure on the 4 pillars. The oil industry was untouched. So maybe provoked by the submissions in those set of discussions, APGA wrote a letter to the federal government inquiring about the status of Anambra State vis-a-vis oil production. And they got a reply to that letter. Both the letter written by the state government and the reply were done this year, later part of this year, after that discussion. So APGA is approaching an election year. They find nothing to put on the scorecard, and they are trying to invent some. That is why they are like putting out a mirage, because your duty is not to produce oil. Your duty is to harness the human and material resources in Anambra State, to give an edge to the oil industry, to raise it to that level of production quota that will earn you additional revenue in your commerce program. so that you will now use it to fund other productive activities in the state. Now, that is failing. And so they believe that rather than put the story as it is, they'll just play on the propaganda part of it, and a lot of our people who don't pay attention to details of governance will come up, oh, well, it's an oil industry. I spoke with a couple of my friends, and they were rejoicing. Oh, good news. There's good news coming from Anambra State. We are now an oil producing state. I said, shh, what do you know about oil producing states? Somebody's giving you a promissory note. He's saying that when you raise your production to a certain level. Now, I have sought the views of the people in the oil industry and the experts. And what I find is that that thing they said, which sounds so simple, might be happening in the next 4 or 5 years. That may be in the second tenure of the next government coming. And so, while we are not discouraging us that there's no hope, we find no reason why any state government would like to celebrate that as an achievement.
Okay,
so to answer your question directly, it is just to polish it and find something to say to the electorate.
So you're saying in summary that it's a facade?
It's a facade. It's a mirage. In fact, facade is better. With facade, there's something to see. But mirage, as you get closer, everything disappears.
Okay, remember that you can join the conversation simply by raising up your digital hand, and I'll try to accommodate as much questions and comments as possible. Let's go to Chief Ohaegbu. Chief Ohaegbu, are you there? Chief Ohaegbu, are you there? Okay, he muted
Has he gone to the appeal court?
Chief Ohaegbu. Chief Ohaegbu, are you there?
I'm sure in collaboration with Okelo, you muted me and you expected me to talk, but that's fine. I will start by saying straight away that I'm on the same page with Okelo on the opinions he expressed about Africa. But what he didn't tell us is that in all this drama, that APC is at the center, because oil production is, I will continue to repeat that, on the exclusive list. He is telling us that Africa has not performed. Africa has little or no role to play. I'm still saying has little or no role to play in Anambra commencing oil production and Anambra being on the oil producing list. When that effort was made by the last PDP administration, it was not presented to the Anambra State House of Assembly. It was presented to the National Assembly. So it's a business that should be done by the center. So APC and APGA, even the letter he's talking about, he's trying to rubbish the letter. And I agree with him in what he said. The only thing is that that letter is not only propaganda by the APGA in Anambra. The APC in Anambra is equally sent that letter with the intention that they will leverage on that. And I don't want to go into that area because when he was expressing his opinions on the performance of the current APGA government in Anambra, I slipped off and my mind was in Imo State. That said, what we should be talking about now is how do we as in the Anambra work together as a people and get whatever we should from that status. Yes, it has been accepted that Anambra is a strategic reserve. What is the implication? What advantage are we going to get from that? Since 2015, nobody has said anything about that. You believe anything if you believe that if Jonathan had won, that he wouldn't have done something about it. So they left it, they forgot about it. I wouldn't know why. Some people may like to believe that it's because we are not in whatever form or we are 5%ers. But that's not the issue now. The issue now is that the federal government has started about it. Tabugo, as we say in Igbo land, that we still have the time to do that. Let's forget about which government is going to benefit from that. because no government is going to benefit. It's the people of Anambra. Whatever we get is meant for the growth of Anambra. So
talking about the people of Anambra now.
What are we now going to do at the center? Whatever that has been put in that letter, what do we do? Do we go back to the National Assembly to get the approval? Because it's the 30% we're going to get is going to be from the Federation account. And we are not going to spend anything from the Federation account if it has not been appropriated by the National Assembly. Not Anambra State House of Assembly, by the National Assembly. And National Assembly, both chambers and the executive, I wouldn't want to add the judiciary, are run by the APC as we speak today. So how would Okelo help us to ensure that this is achieved, irrespective of which government is at the state? We want that to be achieved because it's going to be for the benefit of Anambra.
Okay, Chief Ohaegbu, just before I let Architect Madukaife answer that, your party holds a position as the opposition. Have your party attempted to put pressure on the current ruling party in both Anambra and the center to actually make this mirage a reality?
Okelo himself just told you that there were so many discussions on radio stations and all that, that he probably believes that made the state government to take the steps they took. He didn't tell you that that move was exclusively done by any party. For instance, Peter Obi, who was at the center of making sure that Anambra is made an oil-producing state, how would you believe that he has gone asleep since then? Efforts are being made. But there are certain things you don't get by protesting, because there will always be reasons. You can't protest that Anambra State has not been made an oil-producing state, because the structures that will be put in place for Anambra State to be made an oil-producing state will be burdened by the federal government. And the Anambra cannot be talking about us being oil-producing state when you cannot even simply access Anambra. I'm sorry to say that a few days ago, I traveled to Anambra. I couldn't pass through, I couldn't connect to Oka. I had to go and turn and pass through Fuma and Oko before I could access Oka. So that is why probably the Anambra are not talking about having the oil producing status when we cannot even access our homes.
Okay, now that your party is an opposition both in Anambra and at the center, an opposition to APGA and an opposition to APC, what have your party done to put pressure on both governments to improve the state of affairs in both Anambra and at the center?
What our party is doing, first of all, is to be alive. We are shouting we don't have security. We are shouting there should be something done about open grazing, that people are being killed, where farmers can go to the farm. If you notice, Enugu State, that is a PDP state, is the only state in the southeast that has passed the law. Abia will follow suit in the coming days. Nothing is happening in Imo, nothing is happening in Ebonyi, nothing is happening in Anambra. So we are concerned about our security as we speak today. We want to be secured first. Unless your security has not been threatened, you shouldn't be talking about oil production and even roads. So you see, with the level that we have descended into now, in the Anambra and every other people, about not just Anambra, even in Castina, the governor of Castina have told them to protect themselves, even in Zamfara.
Okay, so you're saying that is not a priority right now. Security is the priority.
People need to be alive first.
All right.
Before they talk about oil status.
Let us go to Architect Madukaife. Architect Madukaife, are you there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Now you've heard what he said. Do you have any reaction before I move to my next question?
Naturally. You didn't need this length of time to say that PDP has done nothing. That was the answer to your question. Just to say they've done nothing. Yeah, and this discussion is about oil industry. It's a specific topic. You don't need to stray into security, stray into grazing and all that, just to waste our time in saying that the PDP does not realize its role as a political opposition. Having said that, I think that while he was making his submissions, he made an error. This is a letter written by a politician to a non-politician. The Director General of the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission is not a politician. He'll be here years and years to come, and there's continuum in his work. There are specific criteria designed, and that was the decision that was handed down according to the meeting of that commission in July. And the only new thing there is the resolution around Anambra River 1, 2, 3 oil blocks, with the resolve at 50-50 for Anambra and Kogi until the boundary is delineated, right? So now we have 8 that are not in dispute and 3 that are in dispute relative to boundary. PDP has no answer to that. They have no clue. They are outsiders in this government process. And that's why you see them straying, going to from one topic to the other. But we would have wished that we had ABGA representative here to explain why they started celebrating another man's achievement.
Okay, let us move on from that. Now the Anambra State is entitled to an additional 30% and 13% derivation fund from the federal government. Does this automatically translate to a higher standard of living for India Anambra?
Is that a question?
Madukaife, I'm talking to you. Yes, that's what I'm asking. Did you hear me? I said that now that Anambra State is entitled to a 13% additional fund from the federal government, do you believe that this automatically translates to a higher standard of living for India Anambra?
If the facts are wrong, the inference cannot be correct. You said now that Anambra is entitled. No, Anambra is not entitled. It is like saying, I will graduate in 2023. And when I graduate, I'll get a job in the oil industry. And when I get a job in the oil industry, I'll build a house. And when I build a house, I invite my friends. Then you start writing the list of friends you will invite to commission your house. When you've not graduated, you've not got the job in the industry, and you've not said to build the house. What I want you to realize from the details of that letter is, look, should oil production happen and oil exploration happen in Anambra State to the point that will give the federation account so amount of money, you can earn this. So go ahead, provide the conditions to make that oil production start and get to that point before you begin to talk of now. Am I clear?
Okay. Yes, Madukaife, let me just ask you this. It's a question from the comments, and it says, what is the effect of the letter received on Tuesday, August 31, from the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission pronouncing Anambra a petroleum-bearing state with all the benefits like entitlement to the 13% derivation principle in the sharing of the national revenue? You can see the question in the comment section. So you can just pick the question and answer that before I start calling on participants, because I can see someone's hand up already.
The benefit is very simple. If I write you a letter and say, if you bring me a customer, you are entitled to 30% or 13% commission. That 13% commission won't happen until you bring the customer. So it can be as simple as that. The effect is, one, on these 3 oil wells, you do not own this oil well now. Kogi does not own it. If anything happens on the oil well, the derivative will be shared between Kogi and Anambra. There are 8 others that are wholly Anambra, which you are not sharing with anybody. So it is a very positive development because you cannot plan without knowing the indices by which you are planning. So now that the information is available, Anambra State will understand that they have 8 oil wells, and then the other 3 that they are sharing with another state. So the experts in the industry can sit down and do a viability study to say, if we do this and do that, in so number of years or so number of months, we can arrive at the target, a so target, and then we can project that by so time, we will now be entitled to the 13%. That is what makes us in the oil industry. So it is the letter is like buying land. This land is allocated to you. Now go ahead and build. So
okay,
build,
let us take all right, let us take the first participant, Galaxy Note 90, and we just lost that. I saw Franklin Ebuka's hand up. Franklin Ebuka, I have asked you to unmute.
I'm so sorry, Augusta, that I'm interrupting again. Why don't we invite Chief Ohaegbu to also comment on the question that you asked, Okelo, the effect of that letter received by Anambra State government?
Okay, Chief Ohaegbu. Chief Ohaegbu, are you there?
Yeah, I'm trying to get the question. I'm looking at the comment section to see if you can remind me of the question again, because I stepped out at some point.
Okay, the question says, what is the effect of the letter received on Tuesday, August 31st, from the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, pronouncing Anambra a petroleum-bearing state with all the benefits, like entitlement to the 13% derivation principle in the sharing of national revenue? It's quite lengthy, that's why I said. Did you get the question?
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, to a larger extent, I agree with my brother Okelo on his opinion about the letter. But as a lawyer who has been privileged to work with the federal government, as a CEO of a federal government agency, I don't think the revenue mobilization is in the position to state how who will be accommodated in the disbursement of the money from the monies for the federation account. The last time the issue of making Anambra State an oil producing state was raised in the National Assembly, it was rejected. And to the best of my knowledge, that has not changed. So personally, I think APC and APGA are trying to play politics over the November 6th election. And as a member of PDP, I have always believed that that is not the best route to go. There's no point telling the people what you believe they would like to hear when you know you are deceiving them. That said, assuming that is eventually achieved, we'll be talking about Anambra having extra billions of naira.
For Ohaegbu. Chief Ohaegbu.
Anambra will have more money to invest in Anambra on paper. But it still boils down to who is managing those resources. We are now working on the assumption that that could be true. So it's going to be extra money in the coffers of the treasury of Anambra State government. And I'm sure that will improve the living standards of Anambra. But in reality, I doubt if we have gotten to that point.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let us call on the first participant. Franklin Ebuka, I saw your hand up and I've asked you to unmute. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, please go ahead.
All right. So I thank everyone for all they have said, but it appears that we are more concerned about, who is going to take the credit of what you have achieved so far. I think we need to state the fact that every government that we have seen in Anambra State has made some contribution towards where we are today. Take, for instance, the government of Chris Ngige made some contributions. I'm aware that that government contributed not less than 100 million naira towards that very project. Then the government of Itobichu made some contributions towards realizing where we are today. That government made contributions not less than 4 billion. We shouldn't forget that the company involved in this oil exploration is a private company, Orient Petroleum. These are the facts. So we have seen collective efforts being made towards getting to where we are. Where we are now is just a step towards getting to what could be beneficial to the people of Anambra State. Now, the issue of 13% derivation for now is out of the way, because until the state begins to contribute to the federation account, Anambra is not going to get anything. So the moment we begin to see oil exploration, and then federal government begins to make money from whatever is going for Anambra State, that's when we now begin to talk about getting 13% derivation and the 3% host community revenue. So having said that, I think we should now concentrate more on what needs to be done to make this a reality. Take, for instance, do we have access roads that can help to evacuate the products? All the oil wells there, have they all been developed? If we need to dredge the Anambra River for us to be able to evacuate this product, has it been dredged? So I think these are the areas we should be thinking about to make this a reality. Because for now, what I believe is happening now is just like parties are trying to take credit on who has brought Anambra State to where we are. So I think we should keep our attention away from this and then direct the government of the day on what it needs to do before we now begin to benefit from this very declaration. Because for now, what we have now is just ordinary paper. That's my contribution.
Thank you so much, Franklin Ebuka. Let us listen to one of our panelists, Okelo Madukaife. You want to react to that?
Yeah, naturally. A very useful contribution. Thank you, Franklin Ebuka. But you stopped short of acknowledging that I had made it very clear that whereas oil exploitation is coordinated by the federal government, the role of the state government is to provide the enabling condition, and that enabling condition has not been provided. Now you've gone ahead to illustrate no access road, no conditions that will house experts that will be in the place. How do you get the product out? And if you begin to translate all this, an expert tells me it will take us roughly 5 to 6 years. That means the second tenure of another state government. And so somebody begins to take post-dated credit. So why wouldn't we talk about that? So thank you for adumbrating on the point I have earlier made, that roles are divided. The hardcore of this business is done by the federal government. The soft one is to be provided by the state, the enabling environment, the condition, the infrastructure that will enable us. So the state government ought to be telling us what they have done to move that industry from point A in 2014 or 2014 March, up till now, when they're celebrating a letter and they're as outgoing government.
Okay, let me just cut it short here. Let me just cut it short. Now, your party is also I asked this to Chief Ohaegbu earlier. Your party holds a position as an opposition party to ABGA in Anambra State and a ruling party at the center. What have your party done to create this enabling or to pressure ABGA's party, that's the ruling party, to create this enabling environment in Anambra State?
Thank you very much. I'll take Franklin Ebuka's permission to take the credit of outlining the issues, of taking the debate to the media, of championing it, and asking and telling what government what to do. And we are proud that they did part of it, but they are now trying to thwart it into what should inform us to re-elect a failing government. What we have been doing, we are in the true sense of the word, APC has been the only opposition party in Anambra State.
But your party is yet to release a press statement about this particular issue.
Which about this issue?
Yes.
What we are doing now is a press statement. I have done same in Akando FM. I have discussed it in Odenibo, and I'm slated to go to Blaze to discuss it. Press statement will not solve this because you do not let people into the understanding of the technical issues. There are people who are celebrating us, and as far as we're concerned, there are things that you don't throw press statement at, because when you do, there will be a counterweight that will regard you as an enemy of Anambra State who does not appreciate progress. So sometimes you take time to explain and to educate.
Okay, let us call on Chief to react. Thank you so much. Let us call on Chief to react to the comments by Franklin. Remember that if you want to join this conversation, simply raise your digital hand and I'll try to accommodate you. But remember also that time is fast spent, so you have to do that now. Chief.
Thank you very much for the opportunity once again. I am on the same page with the Franklin, but my only concern is the way our brother Okelo is trying to apportion responsibilities. Oil exploration in Nigeria is on the exclusive list. My sister, if you bring out oil from the ground, you do not sell it. That responsibility is not divided. It's the responsibility of the federal government to show that oil is brought out from the ground, sold, and the revenue shared. So I don't understand why we should, the way he jumped at road construction, as was mentioned by I forgot his name. Does it mean that we have Federal Minister of Works? If there is need for road to be done for access to, do you know how much that has been, even if you look at the PIA, do you know what percentage has been mapped out for searching for the oil in the north? So are you not telling me if there is no access road, that if the state government has not created any access road, that you won't produce oil? Wherever you have federal government assets, in most cases, the federal government creates accessibility to her assets. And in our laws, oil production belongs to the federal government. And federal government cannot have that established, cannot have that oil production without creating access road to what they have. So I think the best thing, instead of us dissipating energies, going to the rural communities to tell them, oh, these people should not take credit of making Anambra State an oil producing state. We should pile pressure on the federal government for the necessary things to be done and for National Assembly to approve that. You will now come home and say, we have done this. Opposition doesn't mean that you go and start pointing out things that have not been done. Now, you could make efforts. APC is opposition in the states, but they're in charge of the federal government. And what we're talking about is the exclusive list. So there is no division of job. There's no division of responsibilities there. It's purely the responsibility of the federal government to explore oil in Anambra State and give us our 30% as the case may be, and 30% has been provided by the PIA, and then 35% of whatever that has been gotten from Anambra to search for oil in Meduguri or Yola.
All right, let us take the last participant for the night, Galaxy Note 9. please try to rename your device whenever you come on Zoom so we can properly address you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, my name is Tuma. I just want to put some perspective to your discussion. First of all, most of the arguments are without basis. The Orient Petroleum was established by Mbadiniju administration, and I was the shadow officer then. We further made a full presentation to the federal government to acquire OPA 915 and 916. And the basis for the application, for the presentation, was that we are going to process the oil in situ in Anambra State. And that was the basis Chief Obasanjo, Mr. President, granted us the request. In fact, he gave us the oil blocks at a huge discount, very steep discount. I remember Luku was with him then as a special assistant on petroleum. And we are to establish the Anambra Petroleum at Usube refinery and to establish a gas processing plant at, where is this university town? What's the name again? Where there is a university.
Ibariam.
Okay, if you go to Ibariam, we have 3 exploratory wells we have done. The same thing with Anambra East, Anambra West. We also had 3 exploratory wells done by Exxon Petroleum in 1959. So it is intellectually dishonest for the present administration to say they have put Anambra on the oil map. It is not true. Oil drilling has been going on at our stations, at our sites, and the former president, I think was Jonathan also, came to flag it up one time. The drilling, an oil exploration company called Tecon, owned by an Anambra City, was doing most of the drilling for them. The letter from the recent letter that people are celebrating means nothing. They even included fields in Amis. These were exploratory wells. They are not productive. And you can't be talking of 13% derivation when OPN 915 and 916 are owned by Anambra State. And there are a lot, because the Anambra gas fields contain about 30 billion barrels of recoverable crude and over 100 trillion cubic feet of gas. So it is more of a gas field than oil. It bears more gas than oil. And we're supposed to use that to generate electricity and sell to the national grid. These were the basis upon which the federal government graciously granted OPN 915 and 916 to Anambra State through our company called Orient. In fact, I recruited Mr. Waka. Mr. Waka happened to be younger brother to Bilante's wife, the one that was shot, the one that died. I recruited Engineer Waka from Shell to be the first managing director of Orient. So most of the present celebration, I don't even understand the basis, because currently Orient Petroleum has missed the track. Orient Petroleum is virtually not producing. They're mired in a lot of politics, a lot of EFCC problems, and instead of us addressing the management inefficiencies to make Orient productive. We are talking of sharing. Which revenue are you sharing? Damesi fields were exploratory wells that are not producing. The ones in Anambra, also, we are capped at 385 feet. Part of what Tecon did then was to unseal the capped wells and start taking oil. And we have a problem. The problem is that these things are inland.
No, Honorable. Honorable.
They cannot export this. Yes.
Please go ahead. Go ahead. We stopped hearing you at some point. Go ahead, please.
Can I stop?
No, go ahead, please. We stopped hearing you at some point, so go ahead. Yes, we are.
Okay. So the reason is that these are inland basins. There are no pipelines laid up to Anambra for it, and the River Niger is not properly dredged. So it cannot take, most of the things they do now is during high tide, they use small barges to take the oil produced, the little quantity produced to Ibeto jetty and sell. So some of these things were not part of the intendment of those who established Orient Petroleum. It was meant to use them and drill oil from the captive refinery at Sube proposed then, and use the gas to generate electricity from Ibariam, where we're supposed to build a gas turbine, 100 MV gas turbine there to produce the electricity. So all these milestones were never achieved. Yet Orient did so much work, but management problems have made it not to be as productive. So we ought to address, sorry, my good friend, Chief Obunike, and the APC Publicity Secretary. The next government in Anambra should be tasked on resolving the management and shareholding issues, because some people have illegally acquired the shares of Orient, leaving Anambra State with virtually nothing, as the person that established Anambra State is left with nothing, less than 3%. So we need to do forensic audit and resolve those issues so as to make Orient Petroleum productive. These are management problems. So that should be what should task ourselves, not celebrating non-existent 13% derivation. It is fraudulent for the present government to say they have made Anambra an oil producer. It's not true. It's not true. It's just bloody lies. And people shouldn't be fed with such a garbage, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chuma Izeribe. Thank you so much for your insights. Let us listen to our panelists give their last comment before we round up the program. Chief Ohaegbu.
Yeah, I thank Ezana, Honorable Chuma Izeribe, right? Honorable Chuma Izeribe is the civilian general we have. If we have forgotten, he served as a commissioner in Anambra State under the PDP government. He was a member of the House of Representatives under the PDP platform. He went there on a PDP platform. So when he speaks, you know what to expect from him. That said, I also maintain that a lot still has to be done by the federal government, as presently led by the APC, and the money that are being spent, 35% that has been provided in the petroleum industry. Huh?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please, go ahead. Why Harry?
The 35%, the 35% we have in the PIA to look for in the north, that part of it should be channeled towards solving some of these problems. You are talking about dredging of River Niger. That will not be done by the Anambra state government. It will be done by the federal government. And so many things, construction of road, federal government roads. If you go to Nnewi, the permanent site of the Nnamdi Azikiwe Teaching Hospital, the road has been done, although through the intervention of Honorable Chris Azuba. Federal government has done a road connecting to the National Hospital. So I expect that to be done as well. And other things he raised, I think there are administrative issues that could be sorted out. If somebody has acquired shares in Orient illegally, there are procedures for that to be resolved, and those procedures will equally need the intervention of the APC-led federal government. So we are hopeful that APC should look towards that direction in Anambra, and then let's see how it pans out. Thank you for the opportunity of having me today.
Thank you so much. Let us hear from Architect Madukaife, and then we'll round up the program.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate Chief Chumanzeribe for his quality contribution, which shows somebody who was on ground and operated hands-on in the scheme. I only needed to add that viability studies for any scheme is part of that scheme. So the military government of Joseph Abulu should take some credit before we got to the point where Mbadinuju operated. Having said that, I also want to commend Chief Ohaegbu for submitting that the federal government should find out who has acquired shares illegally from Orient Petroleum. At least that's his view. But I don't think that should be correct. I think it should be Anambra state government. I'm hearing it for the very first time. And if you ask me, I think it's a research question. So I would find how to reach Chief Nzeribe through Chief Ohaegbu and get interested in that issue, because we are nothing else but an opposition party for now. Thank you very much for all this.
No cost.
Let's hear from
iPhone.
Hello? I can see an.
Okay, I was saying that at no cost on you, I will give you Nzeribe's contact. I won't charge you.
Okay. If you charge, I can pay.
iPhone, are you
I
there?
know you are government. I know you can pay.
iPhone?
Hello?
Yes, can you?
Yes.
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, all the participants. Thank you. You know, I've been following the conversation going on here, but I'm not hearing from the discussants what are going to be the environmental impact of oil exploration in Anambra State on the poor people. Secondly, if we follow the developments in the oil and energy field, you know, the world is walking away from oil, and we are going in. I hope that the governments of Nigeria and Anambra State will take into consideration the fact that in the next 10 years, most automakers are going to be making electrical cars, not gasoline vehicles. I would want the participants to this conversation to address the issues I've pointed out, so that at least at the end of the day, the environment in Anambra State is kept intact. And my hope and prayer is that when this money comes in from the oil, that is allowed to trickle down to the people. Mine is more or less the contribution, and I hope that these issues are addressed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't think the participants right now can answer that, considering that none of them have a party in government in Anambra State. But let us try. Let us see if any of them want to react. Okelo Madukaife, do you want to say something before I round off the program?
Oh, first of all, let me thank the person that made the last contribution. I recognize that voice. It must be Architect Mike Okonkwo, all the way from Los Angeles. Thank you very much. I think that he made another very useful contribution. Bottom line is, get this oil out of the ground for God's sake and get it useful. Otherwise, after a while, it will just rot in the ground because nobody will have time for it. It will be overtaken by electric cars and other sources of energy. And that's where we are. We don't need to wait 9 years to reinvent the wheel where we stopped and begin to count it as an achievement because an election is approaching. That will be my contribution for tonight.
Okay, let us hear from Chief Ohaegbu. Chief, can you hear me?
Well, I think I will. I agreed with him, but I would like to believe that the environmental impact and all that are part of their full package of things you must consider before you talk about oil exploration. That is one. Two, I don't think Anambra State will abandon the oil exploration because of the possibility that some vehicles will now run on electricity. I think in the up to next 20, 30 years to come, if not 50 years, Nigeria will still largely depend on oil for her revenues. I'm sure of that.
Okay, that's as much as we can take on today's exclusive interview powered by Anambra Television. We have been discussing Anambra as an oil-producing state, the controversies, potentials, and prospects. Special thanks to our guest, Chief Obunike Ohaegbu, former Federal Commissioner, Public Complaints Commission, Federal Capital Territory. Thank you for joining us today. And also, special thanks. For having me. And also, thank you to Architect Okelo Madukaife, Anambra State Publicity Secretary for the All Progressive Congress. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. There's a lot that the APC government will do ahead of for this oil industry.
Remember to follow Anambra News Television on all social media platforms, especially YouTube and Facebook, where this program was streamed live and recorded. In case if you missed it, you can just go back and watch it from beginning. Special thanks to Anambra Television for sponsoring this program. Also remember to follow me, Augusta Neka, across the social media platform. And for me, it's good night. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That's the much we can take today. Thank you very much and have a very good evening. We thank especially our guests and Honorable Nzeribe for making an appearance. Thank you. Good night.
Chief Elomba. Chief Elomba.
Has it disappeared?
I'm saying, can you go back to stop that thing from streaming and stop it? Can you go back to stop it from streaming and recording? I made you the co-host. Can you do that? Yeah, hello. I think I'm having a problem with this device. I can't stop it from recording. So where did you go?
Okay, so it was still going to record what I'll tell you off record. Okay.
That confession you wanted to make.
Oh my God, because
how do you do? Okay, who did you make co-host that will stop it?
No, because I made my device the host. This one engineer. So, but when I left, there's a disconnection. So the host went back to my original laptop at home. So everything. Oh my God. Oh no.
And your lady is gone.
Oh, wow. She, I don't even. I'm not even sure that a co-host can stop it.
Ohaegbu, I'm waiting for the number.
No, I'll text you his number now. Text it.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Because before an injunction stops it.
No.
No, because when you're dealing with PDP, you have to be. When you're dealing with PDP, you have to be careful about injunctions.
Yeah, that is one thing with PDP. They go to court. They conduct elections and end up going to court to discuss the elections. That's why people in the APC, where you don't even see the result sheet and somebody is announced, I think they are better criminals. If you ask me, if you pardon me by choice. Oh, we're still being recorded. Sorry. Okay, sorry. My last statement was off record. Okay, well, this one you guys are pushing everybody. Dan, we are still recording.
Chief Elomba, have you succeeded? Have you succeeded?
He has not. I'm watching it. He has not. He has not. Daniel is no longer a co-host, and it's only Elomba News that is the host now. No co-host. Dan, are you in the office?
If you switch off the device wherever it is, will it still record?
He said device is in his house. I'm sure he's off to make calls today. Please stop hosting so that Okelo will share something with us.
Sir, can you make me a co-host? Let me see if I can stop the recording for my part.
He has been thrown out of being a co-host.
So you can no longer do that if you have already logged out initially. Anyway, I will stop you from streaming live now. The recording part I can take care of it. It will still It will soon stop streaming, so that one will be okay now. Oh, okay. If you stream live, with the problem. The recording, no wahala.